Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome here to the launch pad, or maybe good afternoon or evening, depending where you're joining us from. Welcome to our live launch coverage of today's first Proton-M launch of 2023, launching from Launch Complex 81/24 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan for Roscosmos. If this is your first time here at the Launchpad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here this morning. As always, as we get started, take a moment, let us know where in the world you are watching from, and take a moment to engage that like button and share out the stream as we count down here today. We are 47 minutes, 37 seconds, and counting until the expected liftoff of today's launch. As always, if you want to know more about today's launch, you can head over to our detailed mission briefing, that link there in the description for you. We're going to run through more of what we know about today's launch as we continue the countdown. The official Roscosmos footage and coverage will be beginning in just a couple of minutes, and we'll listen into that as we count down just over 47 minutes now until liftoff of the Proton-M rocket. But it's great having so many of you here. We got Michael in Texas, Gustavo's in Australia, we got Rick in Northern Italy, Iau, sorry if I'm saying that wrong, in Finland. We've got Space in Australia, Magic's in Germany. Great to have you all here. David in New Zealand. Great to have you here as we continue through today's countdown. If it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we bring you full live launch coverage, space briefings, space news updates, and exclusive one-on-one interviews. And we're glad to have you joining us here this morning for the launch of Elektro-L number 4, launching on a Proton-M rocket from Launch Complex 81/24 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. This is the 4th launch of the Elektro-L series satellite and the 7th launch of this variation of the Proton rocket. We are already, can you believe it, at 18 launches for 2023, and we're just at the beginning of February. The first Elektro-L satellite launched January 20th, 2011. The second launched December 11th, 2015. The third, December 24th, 2019. And here we are today for the 4th on February 5th, 2023. As we continue through today's countdown, though, if you guys have questions, you can send us those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those to the best of our ability over the next 45 minutes as we continue to count down for launch. The Proton-M Block DM-03 rocket is a 4-stage Russian heavy-lift launch vehicle derived from the Soviet Proton launch vehicle. This is a Proton-M with the added DM-03 4th stage for today's mission. As you can see, it's a snowy day out at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, and crews are beginning to clear the pad as we prepare for liftoff here today. See, a couple questions. Is this NASA related? This is not a NASA mission. This mission will be launching a satellite payload. This is the 4th satellite in the current series of Elektro-L weather satellites. These are satellites that are designed to provide complete coverage of Earth operating in a geostationary Earth orbit. The Elektro-L series is the successor of the original Elektro satellites that date back all the way to the 1980s. The L designation on the current series denotes that it's of the new design that was developed by the MPO Lavochkin, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but I apologize. The main instrument on board this satellite is a multispectral scanner called the MSUGS, which operates in both visible and infrared ranges with a 20-degree field of view. This is designed to provide resolutions of up to 1 kilometer in visible range and up to 4 kilometers in the infrared range. So this is a weather satellite for Russia. that is being launched here today. Great question there. Launch time scheduled 9:12 and 52 seconds UTC, or 12:12:52 local time, or just 43 minutes and 5 seconds from now. And Roscosmos has begun their official coverage for today's mission. We will be cutting back and forth between that and the clean feed of the pad, as their coverage is, of course, in Russian. And we'll want to keep an eye on the actual pad itself. That's what we want to look at as we continue through the countdown. 42 minutes, 10 seconds, and counting until today's launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. We'll take another look back out at the actual launch site there. You can see the fairing. That is the fourth stage with the fairing, with today's weather satellite on board. Again, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live throughout the rest of today's count. Just make sure you're tagging us at the launch pad so we can see those questions coming in, so we can work on answering those live. Billy Bobble, I'm so used to seeing the reliable Soyuz. I forgot they had other rockets. Thanks for streaming. It's a really good call out there, Billy. It's so true. We normally only see a Soyuz launching with Roscosmos in Russia. It's pretty rare that we see these Proton rockets, and that's why we wanted to bring this coverage here to you guys today, as it is a weather satellite and is a rare viewing of a Proton launch vehicle. Today's launch is launching from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Jeffrey, thanks for sending that in. Dale says, my first launch being viewed on Starlink Internet. Seeing YouTube as non-buffering HD has been sweet. That is awesome to hear, Dale. That's going to be exciting for you to now watch some Starlink launches, watching it via Starlink. I've done it myself, and it's a neat thing to do. So that's super exciting. Glad you get to have a stronger internet connection there, really making internet more available for everyone at a higher quality there. Lots of you just joining in. Welcome here. Make sure you're letting us know in the chat where you're watching from. We got Ken in the United Kingdom. We've got Fairgrounds in Cornwall. Great to see you. A number of people in the United Kingdom as well, with Sue. Thanks so much for being here. We got New York City. We got Germany. Great to have you all joining us here this morning as we continue to count down now just over 40 minutes until liftoff of today's Proton-M rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. A little bit more about the Proton-M rocket. It was developed by Russia and has two variations, a 3-stage variation and a 4-stage variation. It can carry over 23,000 kilograms or 51,000 pounds to low Earth orbit, up to 15,200 pounds to geostationary, that's just under 7,000 kilograms, and it can go into a geosynchronous orbit carrying up to 7,000 pounds or just over 3,200 kilograms. It is comparable to an Ariane 5, a Delta IV Heavy, a Falcon 9 full thrust, and a Long March 5 rocket, as well as Japan's H-2B rocket. So a number of rockets that are similar to what we see with the Proton. There's been a total of 113 Proton-M launches in its history since its first flight on April 7th, 2021. The last time we saw one of these fly was back in October 12th, 2022. There's been 102 successes, 9 failures, and 2 partial failures in this rocket's history. So it's a rocket to rarely see, but we're glad to be able to have coverage of the launch here this evening. Obviously, with the situation in Russia, some of these coverages have not been available through 2022, but we're glad to see that they've got the live views back up and running for this first Proton-M launch of 2023. See some questions coming in the chat. Striker saying Proton's my favorite. That's awesome. It's a really neat rocket. Absolutely. Clayton, if ULA needed to return the launch pad, how quick could they do? Well, I'm not sure what you're meaning there, Clayton. Can you rewrite that one for me? I'd appreciate that. Great question there in the chat. What is your favorite rocket from everyone? Take a moment, let us know in the chat what your guys' favorite rocket is, and then we'll share what mine is a little bit later. But more about the Proton-M rocket. The rocket itself is 58.2 meters tall, or 191 feet. It has a diameter of 7.4 meters, or 24 feet, and as I said, comes in 3 and 4 stage configuration. The average cost of launch, I saw that in the chat being asked, is 65 million US dollars per launch here. And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of the Baikonur cosmic drone in Kazakhstan, Launch Complex 81/24 or 81P, where Roscosmos is preparing to launch a Proton-M rocket carrying the Elektro-L number 4 weather satellite into orbit. We are now sitting at T-minus 31 minutes, 34 seconds, and counting on what looks to be a snowy day at the Baikonur Cosmodrome, but Roscosmos is continuing to count towards the opening of today's window in preparation for launch. This is an instantaneous launch window here today due to the payload needing to be deployed in a very specific orbit to be able to do its weather information. And that is why we have to launch at that exact time. So if for any reason we have a delay due to the weather or any other reason, that would be the end of today's stream. But at this time, we're continuing through that countdown. Now just 30 minutes, 53 seconds, and counting until launch. We are keeping an eye on any updates from the Roscosmos official feed that is being broadcasted at this time. It is in Russian, so we are keeping our eye on the actual pad itself and operations as we continue through today's count. But if we get any updates from that are important, we will of course pass that along to you, and then we will listen into the final bit of the countdown from their team after they turn it over to mission control just prior to liftoff. If you guys have questions, you can, of course, continue sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. See one coming in from Clayton. How quick can they return to the launch pad after they launch another rocket? I know you said ULA earlier in that. It depends on the vehicle and obviously how the launch goes. A little bit different with United Launch Alliance, where they build their rocket in that vehicle building, assembly building beside it, and then they roll it to the pad, where SpaceX can actually be working on multiple vehicles in their hangar, roll them out, and then tip them up. All of ULA's vehicles are stacked vertically, so that takes a little bit longer for them. Generally, I'd say we've seen like a 2 to 3 weeks would probably be a fast turnaround for them at this point. But it all depends on their launch schedule and what vehicle they're doing. Obviously, this is the first Vulcan Centaur that ULA is building, so we're not going to see them really quickly assemble this. But they're building it, stacking it, preparing for launch here in the next couple of months. But we're waiting for updates on that. But we're super excited to see that launch. Space is asking, what rocket do you think Dragonfly will fly on? Atlas V or Vulcan Centaur? Well, if they have not purchased onto an Atlas V already, they are not going to fly on an Atlas. All the Atlas missions have been sold, so they are no longer doing that. Let me try to confirm if we have... Yeah, we do not have a confirmed vehicle, so that will be a Vulcan launch at this point, or it could go into another vehicle. It does not specifically have to go to United Launch Alliance. Depending, NASA could launch it maybe on a Falcon Heavy, and it's not scheduled until 2027. So there's a chance Starship's even operational at that point, or some other vehicles like New Glenn. So this time, I would say it's a little early to know what they're going to lock that down to at this time, but if they did not already contract that on an Atlas V, it is definitely not going to fly on an Atlas V. You are correct there. The Proton can launch from 2 different launch sites, 8123 and 8124, but I don't think we would ever see 2 of them flying at the exact same time. But it's always an amazing thing to see when there's 2 on the pad. We see that down in Florida at the Space Coast quite often now with Falcon 9 and some of the other vehicles. We saw it a lot when SLS was out at the pad. So hopefully we'll get to see that more around the world as we enter this next era of space exploration that is incredibly busy this year. We are most likely going to see over 250 launches, if not more, this year. Over 105 Falcon 9s. We got up to 6 or 7 Falcon Heavies, plus Starship going to do a few flights. It's going to be a very busy year, and then you have Russia and China and everyone else on top of that in the United States. So very busy, and we're going to bring you all that live launch coverage right here on the launch pad. And you're spot on there, Billy Bobble. 250 launches equals no sleep for Zach. It is going to be a very busy year. Our team is super excited about it. We've been working on not necessarily drills, but working on a lot of systems to make sure that we'll be able to bring you that coverage. Well over 150 launches from the United States, and then of course a number of launches from Russia that we'll be able to cover. Of course, those ones that going to the International Space Station we will always cover, and we're going to be beginning to bring live coverage of spacewalks and some other things as well, and that's on top of interviews and news updates and briefings. And I don't want to get people too excited too yet. We do not know when Artemis 2 is going to launch officially, but we are getting very close to what the date when they first started stacking Artemis 1's SRBs, and then it took a year and like 10 months to get to launch. So if we are targeting a November 2024 launch, which that's what they're saying, the end of 2024 for Artemis 2, we could see stacking happen as soon as this month start on the SRBs. Now that's equaling the same amount of delays we saw with Artemis 1. We're hoping we don't see that number of delays again. But that's how close we are to Artemis 2. We know we are going to have the crew announcement in the next couple of months, and then things are going to really start to spool up, and we will launch our entire countdown to launch coverage again for Artemis 2. So lots of coverage coming there with interviews with the team. Super excited to be sitting down with someone very soon from inside launch control. They were a key person, part of the Artemis 1 launch countdown inside the launch control room there at NASA Kennedy Space Center. We're going to be sitting down with them for an exclusive interview, and we can't wait to release that to you guys in the very near future. But with that said, 250 plus launches this year, media briefings, interviews, so much more. If you are interested in joining our team of people, being a rocket chaser, part of our TLP news crew, or any of that, head on over to tlpnetwork.com/about. I dropped it in the chat there. Scroll all the way to the bottom. We do have applications currently open to be a rocket chaser, which is our photographers and videographers if you live near a launch site. Being a contributor or a writer, contributors help us with launching our online platform. We are bringing together a global database of all space history from the first launches to today and into the future, with detailed mission briefings, historical guides, profiles, and so much more. Our writers help with our TLP news team, and if you're interested in helping moderate on YouTube or Discord, we have our moderator application there as well. We've got an amazing team of volunteers around the world, and we'd love to have some of you join our team as well. So consider signing up on there. We're always bringing new people on as we need, and we've got some huge expansions coming this year, projects that we couldn't even dream of launching a year ago that we can't wait to get to share more with you in the very near future, because 2023 is going to be a very, very big year, and we're thrilled to take you along the way with us to factories, to launch sites, to mission control rooms, and everywhere in between. Dale's asking, when the Canadian Space Agency CSA astronaut gets picked for Artemis 2, will you see if you can get an interview with them? You think it's going to be Jeremy Hansen? Absolutely. We're talking with the Canadian Space Agency already, working on doing some interviews with them, and possibly even a visit to headquarters. For those that don't know, I'm Canadian, and I'm the founder here at the launch pad, so we are working to definitely get connected with the Canadian Space Agency. We've already met with them a couple of times down in Florida with Artemis 1, so absolutely, we are hoping to get some interviews on the books with them prior to the Artemis 2 announcement. and then, of course, following that through the countdown to launch coverage, because as a Canadian, I am so excited that a Canadian is even just going to lunar orbit. That is something that, as a kid, never would have really dreamed of seeing. So, super excited for that. And then a Canadian will be on the surface, hopefully by the end of the decade as well. Space, you never knew you're Canadian? Oh, you didn't know, eh? No, yeah, I'm Canadian. We've got a couple more people on our team that are from Canada. We've got a bunch that are across all of the United States, from California, Utah, Georgia, Florida, New Jersey, North Carolina. Want to make sure I'm getting everyone. Washington. I think that's everybody. And then we also have England and Scotland and France as part of some people on part of our team as well. And we're excited to continue expanding that as we bring you the best possible coverage of everything space that we can. If you're just joining us, though, we are now just under 21 minutes and counting until launch of a Proton-M rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, carrying the Elektro-4 weather satellite into geostationary orbit. This is the weather satellite for Russia, and super excited to have you here joining us for the first launch coverage of the Proton-M rocket of 2023. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, and subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. To give you an idea of what you're going to see following launch, we will stay live throughout the entire, obviously, countdown to launch, and through launch up until the end of the launch sequence, about 15 minutes or so after launch, and that's at the point where we will wrap our live coverage there. We may or may not see deployment. We don't have an exact timeline for deployment of today's payload, but we will be keeping an eye on that as close as possible and staying live as long as we do have live views as well. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those. Just make sure to tag us at the launch pad. It is it's a very snowy. Honestly, it looks like where I live. Honestly, this could be about 15 minutes from where I am on a snowy day. It's very industrial looking, but it's just a normal snowy day in a northern country. But excited to see the launch here today. Current weather conditions at the Baikonur Cosmodrome are cloudy. It is minus 1 degree Celsius or 31 degrees Fahrenheit. There is 91% humidity at this time, with the wind conditions being at 18 kilometers an hour or 11 miles per hour. And it is currently the middle of the afternoon. It is Sunday at about 1 p.m., coming up on 2 p.m. local time at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. So it is just a very cloudy day, holding in that heavy humidity, 91+%, with a light chance of some precipitation, 8% here today. So we're seeing a bit of fog, kind of snow fog in the air around the rocket as we continue through today's count. Magic block for rocket chasers: can you, if you live in Germany, just chase rockets in Europe? Absolutely. So what we do with our rocket chaser teams, consider applying, and then what we do is, if you are accepted into that group, we put you on our systems of where you're located and how far you're able to travel with how much notice, if you are able to travel, and kind of work with you on what that plan would be. And then if we have opportunities to go to a launch or something else that's in Europe, or a bunch of other stuff we're working on this year, which I can't say just yet online, then we will reach out to our team that's on site and work on that, and then go from there. So it's something that's expanding as we get more and more opportunities. If you had follow us on Twitter, we were super grateful to be invited just a few weeks ago, actually, by the European Space Agency, as well as Airbus, to visit the clean room in Toulouse, France. The Airbus clean room, where they had the European Space Agency's JUICE spacecraft, or the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, that is just beginning to get shipped to the French Guiana. It is the last spacecraft for the European Space Agency that will launch on an Ariane 5. And we were glad to have Arnaud, I hope I'm saying his name right, Arnaud, one of our rocket chasers, be able to jump on that opportunity. It was super last minute, but we're super grateful for that opportunity to be in the clean room. We have some more of those type of things coming up this year. So definitely consider applying, and then we work with our team to see what we can have happen. Lucius, are we sure this is a weather satellite? Yes, we've seen 3 of these launch before, and that is what we're told and expecting that it is today. It is a bit of a longer countdown there, Mendaku, but luckily we are now just under 16 minutes and counting until launch. That sounds great, Magic. Yeah, send in an application, and then we'll connect, and we'll go from there. Obviously, if things change month to month and year to year, so we'll work with our teams to figure stuff out, because Europe is getting very busy with launches. We've got Saxiford coming on this line. We've got Cornwall. We've got Sweden. We've got not really Europe, but we got India. And then there's a lot of satellite companies that are in Europe that ship out to the Space Coast as well in Florida. So lots of opportunities. Mendicu stream Artemis 2? Absolutely. I will be on site at the NASA Kennedy Space Center press site with some of our team, and we'll also be having some other angles and cameras and opportunities that we'll be doing on Artemis 2 night that we can't wait to share more details with you guys. And there's actually going to be some special ways that you will be able to be involved with our Artemis 2 launch coverage leading up to it and on launch day. But more of those details will come out once SLS goes into its testing in preparation for launch. But our team literally had a meeting just a couple days ago, already working through Artemis 2 plans, and we'll be releasing more and more information over the next... we'll probably start releasing information in the summer, and then a lot more information next year once we get actually onto a timeline for the countdown to launch to Artemis 2. But absolutely, would not miss it. We were there for Artemis 1. It was truly incredible, and can't wait to be back for Artemis 2 to see our big favorite orange rocket back out at LC-39B. John is asking, will the Clipper launch on a Falcon 9 or Starship? Europa Clipper will launch on a Falcon Heavy, and it is targeting launch for October 10th, 2024, and it's scheduled to launch on a Falcon Heavy, of course, from Launch Complex 39A. It was originally scheduled to launch on, I believe it was an Ariane 6, and then it switched to a Falcon Heavy last year. So it was scheduled on a different vehicle, but has now transitioned to Falcon Heavy. So that's who it will launch on at this time. And that's 2024. We do have our clean room view from the NASA JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory, that you guys can jump in on at any point, counting down 612 days, 19 hours exactly, and counting until liftoff of the Europa Clipper. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. We are now just under 13 minutes and counting until liftoff of a Proton-M rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, carrying the Elektro-L number 4 rocket payload, which is a weather satellite for Russia that they will be launching. This is the 4th in the series of the new version of these Electro weather satellites. The first generation didn't have the L, and they launched as early as the early 1980s. So this is a system that has been operational for a number of years that they are slowly upgrading. The first launches of the Elektro-L program, Elektro-L number 1, launched January 20th, 2011 on a Zenit Frigate SB combination. That satellite is now inactive. Elektro-L number 2, launched December 11th, 2015, also on a Zenit Frigate SB rocket, is operational. Elektro-L number 3 launched December 24th, 2019 on a Proton-M, just like tonight, and is still operational. And number 4 is sitting out there on the pad at Launch Complex 81/24, the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. It is a chilly day right at the set of freezing, -1 degrees Celsius, 31 degrees Fahrenheit, but with 91% humidity as we continue through countdown there. There we go, Dale. Yes, SLS. Thank you. Not Ariane 6, SLS. Glad, thank you for that. I knew it was one of the newer rockets. Alucia's asking, do you think Starship orbital launch this year? Absolutely. I think we're a couple months away from a test. Biggest thing to watch for, we need that FAA launch license. That's the biggest thing. They can be ready to launch, but if they don't have a launch license, they launched once without a launch license. They're not going to do it again. So that's what we're really waiting for, is that FAA clearance. Space AU, thanks for saying SLS as well. Appreciate that. So you sent that first there. If you're just joining us, though, take a moment, engage that like button, and subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage. We bring you full coverage of all the rockets, both big and little, from around the world, as well as space news updates, exclusive one-on-one interviews, and more. And we're glad to have you joining us here. A very early morning for those of us in North America, but a great time for our friends in Europe and Asia and that part of the world. So we're glad to have you joining us here this morning as we are counting down now just 10 minutes and counting until launch of the Proton-M rocket from Baikonur Cosmodrome. If you guys have questions, you can continue sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those throughout the rest of today's countdown. And just make sure you're tagging us so we see those questions coming in. If you're just joining us, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. Love to give some shout outs to you guys here in the near future.
Готовность 10 минут.
9 minutes and counting.
Первый, насосная станция рулевых машин, первая ступень включена, 10-й. Доклад 10-го принял, первый.
If you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We're now less than 6 minutes and counting until a launch of a Proton-M rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Glad to have you joining us here today. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button. Let's see if we can get that up to maybe 500 likes before liftoff. And if you have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. I see a couple questions that came in here. We'll continue answering those. Magic, do you guys have Discord? Yes, we do. Discord should be in the description. I'll also drop it in the chat there, and let me know if that link works. That's where we have our community, which everyone is welcome to join. It's free to join. If you are a TLP member, that is where you can get behind-the-scenes access, early access, and things like that. It's also where, if you do end up joining the TLP crew, that's where our crew meets as well. We also do have our Twitter, where you can follow for space news updates, and we just launched our very own Reddit as well, so you can join us over there. We are now 5 minutes and counting until liftoff. The weather you're seeing there, currently 31 degrees Fahrenheit, minus 1 degree Celsius, 91% humidity with winds at about 18 kilometers per hour. About 11 miles per hour at the Baikonur Cosmodrome this afternoon, local time.
Первый, система 14-310, 14-61 выключена, 10-й. Доклад 10-го принял, первый.
Striker asking, have you heard of Copenhagen Suborbital? Yep, we've been following them, and hopefully we'll get to hear some more about what they're doing. It's been a little quiet on their end, but some interesting stuff that they're working on. We are following easily 50-plus companies we are monitoring at all times. So there is a lot of activity happening globally, and we're glad to be following it all. You can hear on the countdown clocks as we continue. 4 minutes and counting until liftoff of the Proton-M rocket. We'll continue to listen into their mission control as we continue through the count. We do, of course, have the official Russian feed that we're monitoring as well as we continue the count. And we'll click over to that once they actually get into the final countdown for launch. But they're continuing their talk show that they do. But we want to keep a close eye on the rocket as we go through the final bit of today's count. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. And if you haven't yet, take a moment and engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview right here on the launch pad. We've got some exciting interviews coming up. I'm going to be sitting down with someone from inside launch control of Artemis 1 later this week, and that interview will be coming out very soon after that. So make sure you're subscribe so you get to see that come out first, and if you're members, you may even get to see that early. As we continue through count, now 2 minutes 35 seconds and counting till launch. As always, let's see a go, no go in the chat. We do this with every launch, and we'll see that from you as we continue through today's count. T-minus 2 minutes, 15 seconds. On a snowy looking day at the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
Готовность 3 минуты. Первый, протяжка включена, 10-й. Доклад 10-го принял, первый.
T-minus 90 seconds until launch. T-minus 60 seconds. We're going to listen in to the final count here with Roscosmos' official feed here. Most likely will be in Russian, but we're going to listen through the final bit of the count. T-minus 45 seconds. T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of the Proton-M rocket from launch site 81/24 at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. 15 seconds into flight, it's cleared the pad.
20 секунд. Давление в камерах сгорания двигателей в норме. 30 секунд. Стабилизация ракеты-носителя устойчивая.
Because of the weather, no live views there. Now 40 seconds into flight.
Полет проходит по программе.
The 6 main engines of the first stage of the Proton-M rocket continuing to burn nominally. Now 1,300 kilometers an hour, 8 kilometers in altitude. We're now halfway through the first stage's burn as we continue through the count. Next major sequence we'll see is first engine stage cutoff and stage separation. That'll occur 123 seconds into flight, now 80 seconds into flight, traveling just under 3,000 kilometers an hour, now at 20 kilometers in altitude. Coming up to 2 minutes into flight, we'll see that first stage burnout and stage separation. And we can see that there. 2 minutes, 4 seconds into flight. Now traveling 6,600 kilometers an hour, already 49 kilometers in altitude. First stage separation confirmed. Second stage has ignited and is burning nominally. So continues the Proton-M to orbit. Next major milestone will be second stage separation just over 3 minutes from now. The Proton-M rocket now traveling over 7,500 kilometers an hour, 69 kilometers in altitude.
Полет проходит по программе. 200 секунд. Все системы ракеты-носителя функционируют нормально. 210 секунд. Система управления работает нормально. 220 секунд. Стабилизация ракеты-носителя устойчивая. 230 секунд. Давление в камерах сгорания в норме.
And if you're just joining us, we are now 4 minutes into flight. The Proton-M rocket now traveling at over 11,000 kilometers an hour, having passed 102 kilometers in altitude, officially over the Kármán line. We are counting down towards the second stage separation and third stage ignition of the Proton-M rocket. That's set to occur in just over about 70 seconds from now. Everything continuing to burn nominally. Now traveling over 12,000 kilometers an hour, just 4.5 minutes into flight. Today's payload is the Elektro-L number 4 weather satellite, launched from the Baikonur Cosmodrome. This is the fourth in the second generation of the Elektro weather satellite constellation. The Elektro satellites have been used since the 1980s, Elektro-L launching in the early 2000s with the first, and this is the fourth one to launch the second on a Proton-M rocket. The last launch we saw of one of these was in 2019. Now 5 minutes into flight, traveling over 14,600 kilometers an hour, 122 kilometers in altitude. We are coming up on second stage cutoff and second stage separation, just over 20 seconds from now. This is a live animation based on real-time data as we continue through today's count. Coming down now 10 seconds until second stage separation. And there we have third stage ignition, second stage separation, 5 minutes, 39 seconds into flight. The Proton-M now traveling 16,500 kilometers an hour, an altitude of over 140 kilometers, and fairing separation confirmed 5 minutes 54 seconds into flight. The third stage will now burn for 220 more seconds before it has separation. 6 minutes into flight. Now 7 minutes into flight, Proton-M traveling at over 18,800 kilometers an hour, 158 kilometers in altitude. Just over 150 seconds left in the third stage main engine before it has shut off. If you're just joining us, we have a clean launch from Baikonur Cosmodrome just over 7.5 minutes ago. First stage and second stage burned nominally and separated, followed by fairing separation. We're now waiting for third stage engine cutoff. As always, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. And don't forget to subscribe to never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. Just over 2 minutes left in this third stage's engine burn. Now traveling just shy of 21,000 kilometers an hour, over 172 kilometers in altitude.
Ракеты-носители устойчивые. 510 секунд. Параметры конструкции в норме. 520 секунд. Двигатели третьей ступени работают устойчиво.
60 seconds left in this third stage burn. Just under 9 minutes into flight, now traveling over 24,000 kilometers an hour, 189 kilometers in altitude. The jettisoned parts will hit the ground in the Baikonur steppes of the of Kazakhstan, so they'll crash land onto land there. Magic Block Proton has had many missions. It's had 113 missions in its life, 109 successful missions. We're now just 20 seconds left in this third stage burn, now 9.5 minutes into flight. And we have third stage cutoff and separation. The fourth stage now continuing on with the payload, just over 10 minutes into flight. The fourth stage and payload traveling 26,323 kilometers, currently 201 kilometers into altitude. And no, they will not recover the fallen parts. And with that, they are wrapping up their launch feed as for today's mission. The pad has cleared and Proton-M has been completed. But with that, we're going to wrap up our live launch coverage. With this being a Russian launch, we don't get to see a lot of the following. We won't see payload deployment, but that is today's launch. Elektro-L number 4 currently in orbit and still awaiting payload deployment. But the first Proton-M launch of 2023 is complete. If this was your first time here, though, thanks for joining us here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together. And if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, space briefing, space news update, or exclusive one-on-one interview. Make sure you join our TLP Discord. It's free to do so. That's where our space community happens. We're going to be launching some community events here this month, and that is going to do it for us here. A late night for us in North America and a great start to the day for those in Europe and Asia. But that's going to do it for here tonight. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and from TLP Network HQ, we're signing off. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.